Today, AAA companies try to incorporate sandbox and open world elements in any game they can. Even if it's not necessary, companies will treat these two features as mandatory because of how popular they are among players. Nowadays, saying that your game is an open world sandbox game might come out even as a cliché, just another one in a large list. But it took years of game development technology advancements for the industry to reach a point where these two elements by themselves weren't impressive anymore. GTA 3, besides being the first 3D GTA, was a landmark game that would kick off the trend of everyone wanting to make their own open world sandbox games over the next 2 decades. Pandemic Studios was a developer that, before becoming one of the many victims of EA, produced a lot of great game series such as Star Wars Battlefront, Destroy All Humans, and the series that was their own take on the trend that GTA started, Mercenaries. Mercenaries Playground of Destruction was released in 2005 for the PlayStation 2 and Xbox. The game is an open-world, sandbox, third-person shooter that might seem like a GTA clone at a first glance for many, but it is much more unique than that. The story is set in North Korea, where Choi-son, the son of the former leader, overthrew his father and became the dictator of North Korea. Song started his own nuclear program and tried to smuggle nuclear weapons to known terrorist cells. A war erupted in North Korea, and now the Allied Nations, the game's version of the United Nations, South Korea, China, and the Russian Mafia are all fighting to overthrow Song. The AN hires the mercenary to capture or kill the key personnel of Song's regime, the Deck of 52. In Mercenaries, players can choose one of 3 mercenaries to control. Christopher Jacobs, a former Delta Force member, Jennifer Mui, former MI6 agent and SAS operator, and Matthias Nilsson, former Swedish Arctic Ranger and Navy member. Each of them has unique abilities, such as higher health and faster running speed, and each of them can speak one of the languages that the factions speak. The factions are an integral part of the story, and completing their quests allows the player to unlock the missions to capture Song generals. The game's progression system, the Deck of 52, is very unique. Based on the most wanted Iraqi playing card, consists of 52 key members of Song's government, each named after a card from a French suited deck. Each suit represents a different sector. Clubs are members of a state-sponsored mafia. The diamonds are high-ranking military officials. The hearts are scientists working on WMDs. And the spades are Song's waifu squad and their male commanders. The highest ranked members of each suit are the aces, followed by the court cards and then the numbers. The aces are hiding at undisclosed locations, so you need to capture as many cards as possible to fill the intel bar up until the middle point to learn where they are hiding. Numbers can be found around the open world and are fairly easy to capture, so you need to capture a lot of them to unlock the ace contracts. Capturing 3 court cards is enough to find the ace's location, but to learn of the locations of the court cards, you need to complete 3 faction quests. When the bar is filled to half, you unlock the ace contract, and capturing or killing the ace ends his suit and you progress towards the next one. The faction quests often ask you to join a conflict against another faction, so while you will gain reputation for one faction, you will most likely lose what you have with another one, possibly turning them hostile. To be able to work with them again, you must bribe them. Because who cares that you just murdered 5,000 men of their army? Heh, some money will do. So you can either play all sides and bribe them when they get mad at you, or you can play in a mostly neutral way, by going after the numbers and ignoring the court cards. It is recommended to play all sides regardless, because completing some of these faction missions unlock new items in the black market shop. And oh, this is ran by the Mafia, so try to not get on their bad side or you will not be able to use it. In this shop you can spend the money earned from contracts to request ammo, vehicles, and airstrikes. This is where the fun and chaos of Mercenaries come from. With all these vehicles and airstrikes you can wreak havoc upon North Korea. Just don't kill too many civilians because you lose money each time you do so, and that means less airstrikes. And don't even think about killing the press, their casualties are even more costly. Unfortunately, the game discourages Blackwater roleplaying. Besides unlocking shop items and progressing the story, the faction system also has a disguise mechanic in it. When entering a vehicle owned by a certain faction, after a certain period of time, players will become disguised as a member of that faction. As long as they are disguised, that faction won't engage the player, unless they drive near an officer who can see through the disguise. Factions that are enemies to that faction, however, will open fire on the player as long as they are disguised, even if the player has a positive reputation, but that can be easily fixed by honking. The game has different endings, including one if they fail to stop Song from launching the nuclear missiles. The faction endings depend on which faction the player had the highest reputation by the end of the game. The game tends to unintentionally favor the Russian Mafia, because for some reason, while China and South Korea are at each other's throats, there aren't as many missions to fight the Mafia in this game. You fools! You thought this would have been the Mafia ending, but you failed to realize the machinations playing right before your eyes. This is not Christopher Jacobs. This is Brother Gao, the long-lost half-brother of Brother Hao. And he's here to accomplish what his homeland should have done centuries ago. Claim the sorry excuse of a peninsula for the glory of China.
天上太阳红呀红彤彤哎，心中的太阳是毛泽东哎，他领导我们的解放哎，真的翻身当家做主人，咿呀咿自由呀呀自由啊，真的翻身当家做主人。
There were very few things that bothered me about Mercenaries. The first one is that the friendly AI is not the greatest. The only reason why this doesn't weigh too much for me is that you will be mostly on your own throughout the game. But whenever you are forced to deal with the friendly AI, it is a bit frustrating. Second, the helicopter landing zones. I don't know why the devs made it so the helicopters have to touch the ground. It already doesn't make sense from a realism standpoint. It makes even less sense when you can't call a helicopter in a place with the slightest elevation. All the landing zone obstructed messages were driving me nuts. Look, this is a helipad. How can a helicopter not land on a helipad? The third one is less about the game itself and more about the system that you're playing it in. I always knew this game from the PlayStation 2, so as it is painfully evident, most of the footage was recorded on PlayStation 2 emulation. But if you can, do yourself a favor and play the Xbox version. It is superior in every way. The PlayStation 2 version has a lower view distance, blurrier graphics, and an overall lower frame rate. The PSU struggles to deal with the particle effects, to the point where the Ace of Hearts mission in particular becomes unbearable to play. At the end of the day, these are very small personal gripes of mine, and Mercenaries stands the test of time as a great open world sandbox game. And it earned a sequel in Mercenaries 2 World in Flames, which was released in 2008 for the PC, PlayStation 3, and Xbox 360. After the events of the first game, the Mercenaries take a contract in Venezuela for Ramon Solano, who hires them to rescue his general, Carmona, who was arrested after a failed coup attempt. After Carmona is rescued, Solano overthrows the government and betrays the mercenary, who then starts their quest of revenge against Solano. What? You're saying that I didn't mention a platform that this game was released in? No, I don't think so. PlayStation 2? No, Mercenaries 2 was not released on the PlayStation 2. It is all in your Oh god! Mercenaries 2 improves on some aspects of the first game and disimproves on others. For the most part, the key gameplay mechanics are here, but with a few changes. The destructible environments were improved. Tanks can demolish some smaller structures just by running over them, unlike in the first game, and larger cities means more things to raise, more chaos to create. The map, of course, is bigger, as expected, due to the generational leap between the first and second games, and this means a more populated world with more activities available throughout the map. The faction system is still here, but a bit different. At first you will only encounter 3 factions: the PLAV, thank god this game was not set in Peru, Universal Petroleum, and the Pirates, who substitute the Mafia. Later in the game, the AN and China joining too. Unless you complete certain side quests or go after the high value targets or destruction targets located around the map, you can stay out of any faction wars up until the end of the game. Disguises are not broken by officers anymore, but if you idle too long near enemies, they will slowly realize that something's wrong. They will also ask if the guy driving is Rodrigo, who apparently is a legend in Venezuela, recognized by both all of Solano's men and the PLAV. I guess he must be like the AAA from around here. Also, the game doesn't have the deck of 52 system, which I guess that they felt like it didn't make sense in this story, considering that this is the mercenary going after a personal revenge rather than having a set plan of priority targets set by the AN. The high value targets are the closest you will get, as you're tasked with either killing them or capturing them, but unlike the deck of 52, all of them are completely optional. Destroying target buildings and capturing or killing HVTs is necessary to unlock new items on the shops. Yes, the shops this time, because there is no black market. Each faction has their own shop, and that means that you have to walk into each one of these traders and buy the items that you want from them. While this is a lot more inconvenient and it makes so you can get locked out of having certain items unless you stock on them before losing reputation with a certain faction, Mercenaries 2 does have a much more diverse selection of items than the first one. Although the firearm variety is still not great, some airstrikes are not there anymore, such as the gunship support, and others are more inconvenient to use, such as the cruise missile not being laser targeted, which makes zero sense. I do appreciate the variety. However, unlike the first one, you do have to go through more hoops to call in vehicles and airstrikes. Vehicles can only be brought in by Ewan, the helicopter pilot who is recruited during the story mission. And a lot of the airstrikes require a jet pilot who you can recruit after finding Ewan and Eva the mechanic. Besides, calling in any support consumes fuel, which can only be acquired by asking UN to winch fuel deposits that are found throughout the world. The fuel cost, which if I had to guess was probably implemented because the game allows players to stock up on a ton of support items, and I guess they didn't feel like letting players call in 99 strikes in a row. It is something that a lot of players disliked, but it is not that bad when you get used to it. At first, you are going to have a very limited amount of fuel, which makes so you can't have as much fun calling in support non-stop. But as you complete side quests that unlock outposts for each faction, you unlock fuel deposit upgrades for your company. By the end of the game, this cost feels as trivial as the money cost in Mercenaries' Playground of Destruction. While having to go around finding fuel deposits is annoying, you can make it quicker by unlocking a faction outpost that has a lot of fuel sitting around. Then you can mark all of them, call UN, and enter the shop to avoid losing reputation with the faction for, robbing them blind. Then if you need more fuel, you can either buy one unit of the cheapest item in the shop or save, then leave the game, load it up, and repeat the process until you get max fuel. The AI was not good in the first one, but somehow it got worse. Like, what is this? I called for Chinese allies, not the Chinese ops. What is this triad behavior? At a point I just couldn't even get mad at it anymore. It's like Oblivion, where the stupidity becomes charming. And oh yeah, glitches and bugs all over the place. But this is just routine to me at this point. Every game. And I don't know, it somehow fits the chaotic nature of the game. Stealing vehicles has this QTE minigame included that is annoying at first, but after you learn the patterns for each vehicle, again, not a big deal. A lot of the side quests follow the format of 3 increasing difficulty levels for each one of them. They seem to always involve driving a vehicle, and they are mostly frustrating. Sometimes it feels like threading a needle while riding a motorcycle on top of eggshells, and a live-action reenactment of Oppenheimer is happening right behind you. Other times you will be just chilling, flying through golden rings like you were a blue hedgehog. And other times you will just hate your life, but you will complete them anyway because you want to unlock the last vehicle and the contract name got your attention. Mercenary Shoe also had a co-op mode that is now a bit more complicated to set up lobbies for, as you have to go through a very specific process to do so after EA shut down the official servers in 2022. While Mercenary Shoe had its problems, the game was still a lot of fun. So that brings us into the question, why was the Mercenaries series forgotten? The reason for Mercenaries being forgotten has less to do with the game itself and more to do with the developers. Pandemic Studios suffered the unfortunate fate of indirectly signing a deal with the devil. The studio was acquired alongside BioWare by Elevation Partners in 2005 and placed under the VG Holding Corp, which was then bought by EA in October 2007. I think you can already tell how this goes. In the following year and a half under EA, Pandemic had to rush Mercenary Shoe while also juggling the development of The Saboteur and The Lord of the Rings Conquest. The studio managed to deliver the 3 games with different results. EA, however, had a different plan. They wanted Pandemic to finish the Batman The Dark Knight game that the Brisbane studio started working on the conceptual development in 2006, so it could be released together with Christopher Nolan's movie. The game's project, however, was too big for the short deadline and suffered from a lot of technical problems, especially when they started to develop the game in 2007 on the Odin engine, which was created by the Los Angeles studio for the Saboteur. EA threw a curveball at Pandemic, as the deadline was pretty much impossible to meet considering the circumstances. In October 2008, the project was cancelled, and in February 2009, Pandemic Studios was closed down by EA, taking with them all of their classic games, including the Mercenaries series. With no new entries in the last 17 years and being pulled out of digital stores, the series fell into the realm of forgotten games. Mercenaries was a series ahead of its time, and it's a shame that it never saw the light of day again. When Pandemic was closed, a developer showed some of the early development footage for Mercenaries 3, and it looked like it would have some kind of prototype battle royale multiplayer elements to it, long before the genre became a thing. Regardless, it would have been interesting to see what the series could achieve with a more modernized open world. While EA has re-released a lot of their long-lost games recently, including some made by Pandemic Studios such as the Saboteur, neither the first nor the second Mercenaries games have shown up at all in digital stores, being abandonware at this point. The hope that the series will ever come back is low. And to be honest, unless someone somehow snatches the rights from EA's hands, it's probably for the best. If you liked the video, please like and subscribe, and thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.